Comrades, I am Admiral Andre, and welcome back to the second episode of the Making History expansion. And I have to say, since yesterday I've been playing around in this game for quite a bit, but I have not continued with the various missions. I actually thought it might be interesting for people to see what some of these parts can really do beyond the missions, because I know the missions are the key part of this expansion, but you know, all the nice new parts that we have are another added aspect of it. So I created, first of all, I reinstalled the entire game from scratch, a completely fresh install, because I was having some crashes and I suspect that some parts of the old mods might have been left behind somewhere. You know, they get in various folders and things, and that could have interfered with some of the loading. So I think we hopefully won't have that problem anymore. So I created but don't worry, all our campaign saves are still safe, but I created a new sandbox save here. This is purely for testing purposes. So there's nothing fancy going on here. So let's go to the VAB. I've built a few vehicles here that I would like to show you. So, comrades, this is the first one. This is the new Vostok. That's what I'm calling it. Now, again, I've said before with my own sandbox campaign that my intention is never to be uber realistic when recreating vehicles. So I'm sure there's points here that you can critique it on. But nevertheless, this is what pure stock can do now. I think it's just amazing. We'll have a look at the craft. I'm going to launch this and then we can discuss it. The boosters, of course, are all new. You can change their colors here, but I'm using this kind of color for the Voskhod capsule, so we'll keep it white and black for the Vostok. So I think it's ready to go. Hopefully I have not messed up any of the staging here. So we're going to obviously have Jebediah take us through this, and I will show you what it can do. Actually, there's one thing I want to fix here. These little struts are of course here just for show, but they obviously also help to stabilize things, but they are not looking very nice at the moment. So let's actually put them on the top part there and link them to the bottom. I guess that works. That looks much neater. I also of course have the struts in between here in the cross configuration, just like we did with our R7 before. But again, these things, I don't know if that actually saves. I like to move them into the vehicle so it looks a bit neater there, but it seems when you reload it that goes back to the normal way. But that's fine, you know, it's one of those small things. So let's go to the launch pad, comrades. Actually, oh yes, this does tell me that something has been repaired when I reinstalled the whole game, because before I didn't have these two options and it was the newest version of the game, so I'm absolutely sure one of the parts of the old mods must have been left behind. So I highly recommend a completely fresh install for you if you have this expansion. It obviously back up your saves, but it just helps, you know. So let us go back to the Woomera launch site. I've never been there, so I think this will be really interesting for us. So let's go. And we did not get a crash, thank goodness, so that does give me some confidence that that problem has been repaired. But now it's nighttime here, so I think we're gonna have to just skip ahead here. I want to be able to see what's happening here. So here we are in the new location, and it's really fantastic. I love this scenery. It reminds me of the other launch site, the hidden one by Kerbal, which is right there in that little enclave. That's been a public secret for a long time, so hopefully I'm not spoiling anything, but you still have to go and look at it. And I would actually also like if we could launch from there. That would be a nice feature, but I guess because it's a sort of hidden there, we don't really have that option, but it really reminds me of that. Anyway, so of course if we have a look at the map, we are here at the top of this peninsula, which I always thought reminded me of Kamchatka in Russia. And I suppose the northern latitude is also par for the course there. But also, it's very useful to remember, if you're launching from here, the most efficient profile is still to go directly east. Now, I don't know what our degree of latitude is here, but that would obviously be the degrees that we are offset from the equator as well, once we launch to the east. But let's have a look at this thing, comrades. 3, 2, 1. And there she goes. Now, I think we still need to have a bit of work on the boosters here, the way that they separate, because we actually managed to capture that Korolev cross very well, I think, with our purely stock one. Oh, good grief. I've forgotten to turn the keys around again when I reinstalled the game. I actually swapped the S and W keys because it makes more sense for me if I'm pushing up on the nav ball to be using W. So I'm gonna have to remember to fix that. But anyway, we'll use the auto prograde assist there. Let me just slack off a little bit. But there we go. So the good thing is, of course, our stages will still be landing there in the water, so we won't be killing anyone on the ground. But the separation here of the boosters, they actually have built-in monopropellant solid fuel. So they have their own built-in separatrons now, but I still think we can change that a little bit. You see, they do separate very nicely like the Korolev cross, but then they start spinning a bit out of control. But okay, that's not a real issue there. But also, I'm still confused about the whole Korolev thing, because I've seen a lot of people do it like this, where they flip from the top down, so it almost opens up like the petals of a flower. But I've also seen, and obviously this is the one we did in our sandbox, where the bottom swings up and then detaches, so it actually swings outside in. Anyway, that's not so important right now. Let's just get into an orbit. Just have to remember here the W and the S are reversed at the moment. Just want to get us back closer towards the 90. Doesn't matter, of course. It's really, we're not going for a docking or anything at the moment. So yes, then I built this whole fairing nose cone system here. We're going to, actually I have to put the other stage beneath that. So when we separate, I just love how smoothly it works. So obviously that's just another nose or fairing there on top, but then I put it so it actually works not from the bottom up but from the top down. So let's see, 115, let's go a little bit further, and then I just use two separatrons that are not equal, you know, the one side is stronger than the other, to flip that nose cone off there. So something like that, it's fine. We don't need to worry about being too specific here. But now these Vostok and Voskhod capsules do not have any reaction wheels. But you know, for us that's really great, because we've been playing in our sandbox campaign without reaction wheels. Unless of course we did something like Mariner or the Woomera missions or something where there was some kind of gyroscope involved, then we have a little bit of reaction wheels. But let me just turn on the RCS. So this will help stabilize us, but I can really just forward. We can also dump the core stage. But here I use one of these adapter sections. I think this is actually the part that goes with the Gemini craft, to sort of make this a bit narrower, because this whole upper section is one of the new diameters in the game. It's 1.85 meters, I think, and so that's a whole new thing for us there. Oh, I'm doing the wrong thing again. I'm doing W when I should be doing S, and I'm losing control, and the whole thing is just going crazy. So let's rather do it automatically, or ask Jeb to do it for us. That might be safer at the moment. Then I'll just burn here. I'm not going to mind getting into a perfect orbit right now. Just something so we can have a look at the Vostok itself. Now it's going a bit crazy here. I think the gimbling I need to turn down a little bit more. But of course we have the vernier engines here, and those central ones, the Kodiaks, don't have gimbling either. So it's very much modeling the real thing there. Oh, good grief. Time to ditch that engine, and things go a bit crazy there. I have to adjust the strength with which the decoupler fires there. So still a bit of work to do with this craft. But that's fine. That's what I like doing, this sort of tweaking. Now anyway, we've got way too much fuel here as well. We just changed the view. So there, of course, we have the Vostok with its upper stage that inserts it into the orbit. But now it's time to detach. And so smooth, it's like butter, comrades. I love that. So let's press the number 1 key and extend all of the antennas. There are so many of them on this craft. I know also with our stock, or previous I should say, stock Vostok that we built in the campaign, I used some of those other antennas that are the same class as this one, the Communitron 16S, I think, the ones that don't move for the top and the bottom, so they look more like those hoop antennas. But I think for the re-entry anyway, we need to bring these antennas back in. I think they're actually detached on the real thing, but for us that would be a little too crazy to make them all detach. So of course in the back here I still have all of these various radiator panels to look sort of more like the real thing. And then the Spark liquid-fueled engine that we know and love already. For the various controls here, I actually saw one of the pictures on Reddit. Let me just turn off that SAS, because the thrusters are trying to equalize there the whole time. But anyway, I saw a picture of the Vostok as it was built by the developers. Now, of course, the really great thing about this, comrades, is even though we now have stock parts for things like the Onion or the Vostok, they don't give us a strict guide on how to build it. There is no like, this is the right part, then this is the right part. You can still do whatever you want, which is, I think, the greatest spirit of Kerbal Space Program. So in any case, there they used one of those traditional monopropellant thrusters, the 4-way ones, but I don't want to use that yet. I feel they're a bit too advanced. They're more like the Apollo era thrusters. So in this case, I'm just using the linear place anywhere thrusters. And actually with the Voskhod, I took this middle one and just moved it a bit down because our center of mass is right behind there. And of course, the closer they are to the center of mass, the less maneuverability they will have. But anyway, this works just fine for our craft. So we have roll control and we can, of course, change our orientation. But there's no forward and back translation, which I think is actually quite fine. Now, let us just roll this thing a little. I want us to have a look at the inside of this capsule. Okay, now I'm just going to have it try and stabilize it there. So let's go in, and this looks so wonderful, comrades. I'm really in love with this. It's got that old school feel with the magnetic tapes here and everything. It's really great. Then we have our tiny little window here. We can't actually double click on it to see a bigger view, which we can usually do. Actually, I saw it there for a moment. No target. But then we also have this one. Again, we can't double click on it to get a closer view. But this is so much like the real thing, you know, where they could track the ground. And if we just fast forward a little bit, we'll see the terrain move around there. So it sort of magnifies it. Look at that. You can see actually a lot of detail here, I have to say. So this is a really fascinating thing for me, because in our campaign, the stock sandbox one, although I should stop saying stock because this is also stock now, we used one of the lander cans to be a placeholder for the Vostok, but this is just so much better, comrades. Now, of course, the best part is when we have to re-enter. Let me show you that. So now, of course, I just have to remember which side is up and down, but I'll just let Jeb do this for us again. So this is going to be a very short mission, comrades. You see, it has a lot of trouble trying to stabilize it because it's so close to the center of mass. But this craft is not really supposed to be that maneuverable. We just need basic controls here. So let's stabilize it there. Now I'm going to have us burn for our re-entry, so that's why it's a very short mission. And you can see the engine effects are also upgraded now. Very interesting. So it's almost like a real plume mod, but stock, which is again great. I won't be surprised if we get stock clouds one day, but then again there are mods to do that. So let's just re-enter. We're just going to splash down somewhere in the ocean. Does not really matter. I just want to show you that. That's fine. Don't need to worry. So now of course we're going to separate, but there is no decoupler in there because this capsule comes with its own decoupler, and this arm here actually detaches, and that is a really wonderful thing. Now I do think I might need to turn the force on this down a little bit because it does decouple with quite a kick there. But you can also see this re-entry module has its own ablator installed already, so you don't need a new heat shield for this, unless of course you're going from a much higher orbit or another planet. Then I'm sure you will need it. So let us actually detach now. There you can see it kicks us off there. But there we go. Now we have our spherical capsule, and I can just press 1 to bring the antennas back in. And now we have no control at all, but it of course has its own offset mass there, so it will correct itself when we enter the atmosphere. Now you can also hide this parachute by just moving it into the capsule. I did that with a Voskhod, but for this it's fine, we don't need to. But of course you can play around to make things look a bit more realistic. So let's just fast forward until we re-enter. There we go. So I'll turn off the SAS. We can't use it anyway. And now you'll see quickly how the craft corrects itself here. Jeb is just elated. Actually, I have to say I have not used the parachutes yet. The Kerbal ones, because the tests that I did before were in our YouTube save, where the Kerbals didn't have enough experience yet. I think you need 3 stars before you can use the parachutes. I guess they don't trust the Kerbals around, you know, individual parachutes. So actually what we might do, as soon as we deploy the parachute on this, we're going to jump out, because that's essentially what happened with Vostok. So I'm just, okay, it's warning me about physics time warp. I'll just say yes. We'll just fast forward a little bit. Also, I'm not sure, but I have a sense that, I guess it's because they're using a new Unity for this game, that the flames have been upgraded, because you can see they fold around this round shape of the capsule here in a really nice way actually. Have to say, look at that, it looks like it's glowing there. It's really nice actually. Now if you don't have any ablator on the craft, you'll see it burn black actually all around, which is another nice feature. So we're just re-entering there, and that come on man, that looks so nice to me. It almost looks like Sputnik there for a moment. But yes, so we're just waiting until we re-enter now. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be a bit dark, but that's okay. Now, I have no idea how to control the parachutes of the Kerbals, so I'm going to have to learn very quickly now. There, it's cooling off. Just fast forward again. Just wait until we get into the low atmosphere. What's that? Minmus, I guess. Oh yes, it's very, very dark now. Actually, in that case, I might just revert, comrades, because we're not going to see anything. Or let me go to the settings. I think, isn't there something that we can use to change the brightness somewhere? Why do I have that idea? I'm almost sure. Pixel light count. I'm not sure. but I don't know if you'll be able to see much here. Lights on, so there we go. We do have lights with us. And we're just gonna continue down. It does feel anticlimactic to just revert now. We've come all this way, we might as well give Jebediah a splashdown. Now I'm not sure the altitude that the Russian cosmonauts actually ejected, but I think we just deploy the parachute now and then it will of course open. But now, Jeb, are you ready? EVA. Oh yes, look at the parachute thing. There he goes. Now deploy mode. Deploy the chute. I still have to play around with their new spacesuits. I hear they do have new ones. There's the other one opening now. Jeb is not... Oh, good grief. It sure has a lot of force there. Now, 23 meters is still a lot. Jeb is totally dubious. He has no expression. He has never seen this before. No, don't cut the parachute. Okay, so we just move around like normal. So basically we have to land like a plane now. That's interesting. So we're gonna have to just flare up there at the end. Can I just put his lights on? Maybe it will help. This must be terrifying. We've just come from orbit and now we're splashing down at night in the ocean. So 130, 20, 10. This might also be easier actually above the ocean because we don't have an indication of the height of the ground if it was not at sea level. So now we have to bleed off speed here. I wonder what the tolerance is. Just go straight up and splash down. About 6 meters per second. Actually, I wonder if the capsule wouldn't have been slower. But there he is, safely splashed down, and he still has zero expression. He's absolutely shocked by what just happened. He's never seen a parachute before. Now, the Vostok is still coming down, so at this point I'm going to revert. At least we splashed down, comrades. So now we've seen the Vostok. Let's have a look at the Voskhod. And for this, these are all the stock creations, of course. And I think some of them actually use the old 3-crew capsule still. Anyway, there's the new Voskhod, so load that, and there we see it. So I used a different color scheme, but the same tanks and all of that. So really this is something we could still tweak a bit there. But in this case, of course, we have 2 Kerbals and we have the inflatable airlock. Now, the inflatable airlock on its own does not detach, but I put one of those octagonal strut things in there. Actually, we can just have a look at it. Yes, the cubic octagonal struts like that, and then a decoupler around that, and then the airlock above that, and then I just moved the whole lot in there. So it actually does very neatly detach as well. Now I just want to tweak this. I'm not happy with this. There we go. So of course the Voskhod, as we know, had a backup solid fueled re-entry motor there. I just use 6 of the Separatrons. Now I'm not sure again if 6 are enough because I don't have Kerbal Engineer here anymore. But I think it will work. Of course we still have our main engine. Now all I did with this craft is I offset these tiny linear thrusters a little bit down. You can see the other ones were the same level as the roll thrusters, just because the further they are from the center of mass, the more control we have. The rest of the craft is exactly the same, comrades, which I think is pretty much the truth for Voskhod. It was a very quick construction by the Soviets and of course not the safest craft either. But one thing I still need to do actually is place some retro rockets on it when we land, because they actually did have retro rockets on it because the parachute was not enough. Now we used 2 parachutes, which you can see right there, just clipped into the craft, but that's fine. And still, that's perfectly safe for Kerbal, but we can put some of these separatrons on the bottom somewhere. But they actually had them attached to the parachute lines. Now, of course, we can't do that, but still we can slow it down a little. Let's just go up and I'll show you how this thing works. We're just gonna launch from the normal launch site. Or not, it actually still remembers that we went to Woomera, so that's fine. But the color scheme here does differentiate it a little bit from Vostok. So let's just go back to the day. There we go, now we can see everything. I love the lights there. So the interior of the capsule is really interesting because it's the exact same thing, but you can see that magnetic tape is gone and there's another window there. The rest of it I think is the same, except there's another seat in the back, which is pretty much what they did with Voskhod. So let's launch this thing. I will meet you in orbit, comrades. We've seen this already. Comrades, we are here. Of course, this is just a very low orbit, but that will suffice for us. And there it is. Let's just press number 1 again. All the antennas will extend. And we can see the craft is really pretty much the same thing that we had with the Vostok, except, of course, we have the airlock and, of course, the 2 crew members. So that is why they call this the P reentry module, because it's 2 Ps in a pod. So let's extend the airlock. Actually, let's have a look inside again. Details, you know, details make life. Now, of course, we can't see out the window because the airlock is attached there, but we do have the other one very nicely given to us. Actually, we can see, is that the other part of the booster? No, that's interesting. That looks like the target thing. Might be something that will still be fixed, I guess. It looks like it's actually detached from the window. Anyway, let's have a look again at the crew, the other crew member. So, unfortunately, they can't see much. They can look out down there or sort of out that window, but not really. So let's inflate the airlock. We'll turn off the RCS. Very nice, comrade. So of course now it's pressurized, and the reason for this whole detachable airlock thing, as I said in the episode where we built the Voskhod in the old game, let me just stop this sort of rotations that's happening here. The reason for that, of course, is that the interior of the Voskhod capsule could not really be safely depressurized because it used air cooling, and of course now you depressurize, then the air goes out, so things will really get out of hand and heat up too quickly and get damaged. So you have to have some kind of a barrier between the vacuum of space and still maintaining a pressurized environment. So they came up with this detachable inflatable locker, which is another really dangerous invention, but it worked. Of course, Alexei Leonov had trouble getting back into the inflatable airlock because his suit had expanded when he was walking on the spacewalk or floating around on the spacewalk. So he actually had to depressurize his suit a little bit, but it worked and he survived, so that was a great achievement. Now you might wonder, how do we move from the capsule to the airlock? Of course, we right click and we just say transfer crew. I don't have to click on the door anymore either. We just right click anywhere. So Bill is going to be doing this, and we say transfer, click on the airlock, and he is now in there. Now there is no interior view for that. So see. Oh, there is actually. I haven't done this before. You can't just see it on the picture there, but there is actually. Good grief. Details, comrades, they make the whole experience. Just look at that. So now he is ready. He is going to step out. So we depressurize this whole airlock and he is now out. So he of course can do his spacewalk, and he also has the whole parachute thing. Yes, this is totally the case, comrades, that the reinstalling the game has fixed all of these issues, because I couldn't see that before either. I guess also it might be because the Kerbals didn't have enough experience. But you see, even the suit, the jets on the suit have been upgraded. Much sharper than before. So anyway, he is now done his spacewalk and we are going back into the airlock. Let's hope he can fit in there. Oh, good grief, wrong thing again. Board. There he is. So now we just right click and transfer and move him back into the P module. And now we're done with it, comrades. We can detach. So the next step is just to press spacebar. There it goes. You see, it doesn't kick us around or anything. Very nice. It just detaches. You see there actually, there's a bit of a bug there. The zoom thing is actually outside of the craft. Interesting. I wonder why that is. Oh well, doesn't matter. Now we can see outside of this window as well, although you can still see the octagonal strut that I used to attach the airlock, but that's fine. Details again. So now we pretend, oh dear comrades, our re-entry motor has failed. So this is of course why they had the backup, because the Voskhod flew at a higher altitude than the Vostok, so its orbit would have decayed much slower. So let's point actually prograde, because the motor is on the top there, so it is now pointing retrograde. So let's fire that. We've of course seen the motor. Oh good grief, it fails. Actually this would make a superior or superb I should say mission for the mission builder. What do? Your engine has failed, so you have to use the backup. There it goes. Good grief, with some gusto I have to say. 2 Gs we're pulling. But now I'm wondering, did that help? It did indeed. I can just turn the thrust down on that. It was a bit too extreme, I think. But that's it. So now we're on our re-entry, comrades. So the rest you've seen. Of course, now we just press spacebar. That thing detaches there, and spacebar again for the capsule, and then we re-enter like normal. So I'm going to revert. Now, comrades, I want to show you what I did in terms of the Soyuz capsule, which we have never had before really in Kerbal Space Program stock, or at least we couldn't accurately create it, or easily anyway. So let's open up the new Soyuz. So in this case I use a slightly longer tank because the whole upper stage is a lot heavier there. But there we go. So of course we use our fairing now from the bottom to the top, because we need the escape system there, and that of course rescues the whole craft. Now if we just have a look here, actually I'm wondering if we should launch this thing. We might as well, but the one problem I did find in my test was we did not have enough monopropellant. So I'm going to remove these tiny little tanks and actually put bigger ones, if I can find them. So these are the small ones. Let's use these old ones. We'll take, how many do they have again? 20. We'll use 4 of them. Just somewhere there, and then of course I'll just move them in. The real Soyuz doesn't have these exterior tanks, so we'll pretend it was built into that housing. We can even take some fuel out to sort of role play that, you know, that leaves room for the monopropellant. So it's not totally illogical magic that we're using there. So I guess I'm going to launch this, comrades, and then the same deal, I'll meet up with you again once we're in orbit so I can show you this. And I have to say, comrades, let me just speed up to the day again. There was no crash again, so this shows me I fixed the problem. So yes, there we go. There is the new impressive Soyuz, and it does have the escape system programmed in with the backspace and all of that. So yes, I'll just launch this, comrades. See you in a moment. Right, comrades, here we are again, and let me just switch to free camera. It's much better, I think, when we're going on an inclined orbit. So with the Soyuz, what I've done is, of course, we use the same kinds of engines that we did for the boosters of the rocket here. And of course, the fact that we have different fairing sizes really helps to make it look good there. Then, yes, I think we're ready. We can actually detach. We have a lot of fuel still, so there's so much room to play with. Just detach. There we go. And we can stabilize right here. Just something like that. Now, what we have to do is, of course, press number 1. We extend the various antennas and docking radars and things. And we also have to just extend the solar panels, which I don't have on a key of their own. So there is my attempt at a stock Soyuz now, comrades, and I have to say I'm very happy with it. I think it is actually much, infinitely better than we could do before. So really what I've done is just used one of the 3 Kerbal Voskhod capsules, and again the three-person Voskhod capsule was not made for spacewalks because the people inside actually had so little room they couldn't put on their pressurized suits. So it was really about getting that achievement of sending 3 people into space. And I have to say I was very shocked when I actually learned that the Voskhod capsule could squeeze 3 people in, because it's the same as the Vostok, comrades. It's really essentially made for 1 person. But anyway, in this case, we use that for the re-entry module of Soyuz. So, of course, using a fairing on the bottom there helps to get that bell shape. So, I took off the ablator here. And we have a separate heat shield on the bottom, which I activated to jettison. And then we have landing rockets underneath as well. Although we don't really need them because I used 3 parachutes. So I can still tweak that, of course. Now the same story here. I tried to recreate the thruster system of the Soyuz, and of course that is not like the Apollo 4-way one. If you look at a nice picture like on the Wikipedia page, the first one that you see, if you actually enlarge that was I think taken from the ISS. You can see they have this sort of thing where it's a 3-way on the bottom and then 1 for reversing, so there's no forward thruster on that cluster there. That of course we have on the back. So yes, I think it actually is great because now we can attach another, this is a P module for sort of the orbital module, where now the Kerbals can sort of go as well, because it's far too cramped to sit in this capsule the whole time, especially if they go on a longer mission. And then of course just a normal decoupler in the middle, and I just moved them to fit nicely together. So let's actually have a look inside here. Now we see here this window is actually looking correct there. And for some reason this one is not though. It might have something to do with that fairing that I used. Not sure. But anyway, comrades, I am going to not show you the landing here. We can still have a look at that when we get to the landing of the actual Soyuz in our campaign, which I'm going to restart again soon, or continue, not restart. But let me show you just here now. We detach. So there we detach the orbital module, and now this one unfortunately is going to kick us a little bit. I have to turn the strength down there. So there is the, oh dear, we should be fine. We might break those panels, but we don't need them anymore. But this does look like that shape of the Soyuz. And of course then we jettison the heat shield, and we have the parachutes, and then we fire the retro rockets there right at the end. So let's revert. I want to show you one more thing. So comrades, this is the Lunar excursion module. This is a new capsule, of course, that we have, and that of course models the LEM. So now we have a nice one to use for that as well. But somebody on Twitter actually asked me they couldn't see the bottom part of this, and there isn't one actually. I had to just use one of these. No, that's the engine plate. Let me show you what I actually used for that. Was it this one? No, the smaller one. There, that's the one I used, the FLTX220 fuel tank. And then I used these structural plates, and we have so many more of them now. We even have triangular ones, but I just used the smallest one, which of course you can make gold. And then the problem was they didn't fit very nicely. I saw Matt Lown do this as well for his demonstration, but he did not have the same eye for detail. I'm not dissing him, I'm just saying I like this sort of thing, this sort of detail work. And I just used the structural panels on their side, two of them next to each other. Now it fits absolutely perfectly here. Now of course if we want to make it even more realistic, we could make one or two of these side panels the dark metal color, because the whole thing wasn't gold all the way around on the bottom. But then I also used these small triangular pieces for those little guards that they had against the thrusters, so they didn't actually interact with the bottom of the craft here. So then of course let's just see, I just use a normal terrier for that and a spark for the top one. But now we come to the actual landing legs and all of that. And here I used another one of these structural panels for a little bit of a walkway there. And then of course the ladder, but I'm not perfectly happy with that yet. There actually I want to try and make some kind of a ladder that is always out there, because their ladder of course did not extend, it was a fixed one. But in any case we also have another challenge, these legs, because the legs of course were in this configuration. Let's just get 4 of them like that, so it's on the side where the ladder is. But now we have this problem that we actually clip there, but I think I might need to move this walkway up there, but have it detach or something, then have the ladder over that, because I don't want these to sit like that, where they fit now, but then we have this part hanging on the bottom. So I look at all of these things very much as an engineer, even though I'm not an engineer, but it's like trying to fit things together, and how are they going to look better, and how are they going to work better, and all of that. But very interesting. So we'll get to this part in our campaign as well, of course. We still have to do a moon landing and all of that. And but I just wanted to show you this, because maybe you were also wondering what to use for the bottom of the MEM here. And if I just have a look, I used an engine plate on the bottom there. So yes, that's about it, comrades. We can just quickly see under the ladders. Actually, what would I do in this case? Something probably like that. Then use one of the octagonal struts so it looks like it's attached there. Then can we put this in its correct position now? Almost. We've got a bit of clipping now still. It would have to be even higher, or I could just move this a bit lower. So this bottom part is still attached. That's the important thing for me, but it mustn't be free hanging there. But that looks a bit better. Now let's look at the ladder. It's going to have to be one of these Pegasus things, which I think are actually updated now that I'm looking at it. It has this little white part in the middle. Now this would be more of a challenge, I think. But again, the offset tools will be very handy here. So that would be the first one. I'm not sure how to do the rest of them yet. Let's see if we could actually offset something. Now of course that one is in the way. What if I do it underneath here and then move it up from there? Can't move any further. But anyway, comrades, the point here is not to go into detail with this, unless of course you would like to see something like that. But I just wanted to really show off these parts and what you can do with that. Also, actually, I'm going to just open something. I don't want to save this. Somebody, also the same person on Twitter who asked about that, the bottom of the mem, asked about the Vostok service module, I think. So let's just have a look at that. So for this, all I did, just remove all this stuff there. You can also see how I attached the fairings on the top. I just used another octagonal strut there. So actually for this, these are just those adapter fuel tanks. I think it's this one, the FLA150. Two of these in reverse, you know, and then that's it. And a small engine on the bottom. And of course you can change their colors and appearance and all of that. But that's really it. So that's again, like I said earlier, we don't get sort of a recipe for how to build these things. We just have to try and make the best of it that we can. And this is also great because it leaves it open for imagination. And of course then we don't have a correct part that goes with this. We can play around with it, you know, we can improvise and things like that. So I think the developers really took the right decision here to give us a few core parts and of course the things to make it look nice, but it's really flexible and we have to be a bit creative as well. So anyway, comrades, that's it. We'll continue with the missions in the next episode, unless you want to see more of this. And then I might actually try and build a mission myself using one of these crafts and then share that with you. That might be interesting if you are interested as well. So, see you next time, comrades. Have a fantastic day as always, and I hope you're enjoying this expansion. It certainly is worth it. Thank you for watching, comrades.